Let's talk about power. We're going to peel back the curtain on a world that most of us suspect exists, but very few of us really understand. We're diving deep into Robert Greene's incredibly controversial classic, The 48 Laws of Power, to get a handle on the rules of this unseen and often ruthless game. And this quote from Machiavelli, it gets right to the heart of it. It's a pretty stark warning that sets the stage for the kind of cold, strategic thinking we're about to explore. This isn't about being good or evil. It's about understanding the world as it actually is, not how we wish it would be. So, the book we're breaking down today is Robert Greene's massively influential and endlessly debated The 48 Laws of Power. What we're going to do is distill its core ideas and look at a few of its most critical laws through some absolutely unforgettable stories from history. So what's the big idea here? Well, Greene's book kicks off with a really powerful premise. There is an unseen game of power being played all around us, all the time, whether we like it or not. The core argument is that basically every human interaction is a negotiation for power. It's just unavoidable. And here's the kicker. You can choose to ignore the game, but that doesn't mean you're not playing. It just means you are almost certainly going to lose, and you end up as a pawn for someone who actually does understand the rule. Now, what's so clever here is the parallel the book draws. It compares our modern world, the office, our social circles, to the old royal courts. Those courts were filled with grace and elegance, but right under that polished surface was a relentless, hidden battle for influence. Today, things seem fair, democratic, polite, but Greene argues it's the exact same ruthless game being played, just with a different set of costumes. All right, let's get into the first law. And this one is a big one. It's a classic mistake that has brought down incredibly powerful people for centuries. We're going to look at one man who ignored it and paid the ultimate price, and another who mastered it to achieve greatness. So, the law is pretty simple on the surface. Make your superiors feel brilliant and secure. If you show off your own talents too much, you don't inspire gratitude, you inspire fear. And trust me, there is nothing more dangerous than an insecure master. And this story just perfectly illustrates the danger. Meet Nicolas Fouquet, the finance minister to King Louis XIV of France. He wanted to honor his king, so he threw the most spectacular party the world had ever seen. The food, the entertainment, the fireworks, it was all breathtaking. He thought he was showing his loyalty and good taste. But the very next day, he was arrested. He spent the last 2 decades of his life locked away in a prison cell. His mistake was fatal. In trying to impress the king, he ended up outshining him. His party made the king's own events look second-rate. He made his master feel small, feel insecure, and for that, he was basically erased from the world. Okay, now let's contrast that with the true master of this law, Galileo. When he discovered the moons of Jupiter, he didn't just shout it from the rooftops. No, he was way smarter than that. He brilliantly linked his discovery to the glory of his patrons, the powerful Medici family. He named the 4 moons for the 4 Medici sons, basically saying the heavens themselves were celebrating their greatness. The result? Instead of inspiring fear, he inspired gratitude. He was rewarded with a cushy job, a full salary, and a life of security. He made his masters shine, and they in turn lifted him up. All right, law number 2. And this one really flips a piece of conventional wisdom completely on its head. It's all about the danger that lurks in familiarity, and the surprising upside of a former rival. This quote is just chilling because it's so true, right? A friend knows your weaknesses, your secrets, your insecurities. In any kind of power dynamic, that makes them uniquely dangerous if things go south. Jealousy can curdle friendship into the absolute bitterest kind of hatred. Let me tell you the tragic story of the Byzantine Emperor Michael III. It is a perfect cautionary tale. When he came to power, he needed someone he could trust completely. So, naturally, he turned to his best friend, a former stable hand, named Basilius, whose life he had totally transformed. So Michael gives Basilius everything: education, titles, insane amounts of wealth. He thought this would guarantee loyalty forever. But what he didn't realize is that such overwhelming generosity can become a burden. Basilius's gratitude slowly festered into resentment, and being that close to the throne ignited a really dangerous ambition. The end of the story is just devastating. One night, as Michael slept, soldiers came into his room and murdered him. And who was watching from the doorway? You guessed it, his so-called best friend, Basilius, who then took the throne for himself. Michael's trust in his friend was his undoing.
Now, contrast that with the brilliant strategy of Emperor Sung of China. He understood this law perfectly. He saw his powerful friends, his own generals, as the biggest threat. So what did he do? He bought them off, gave them a rich, comfortable, and totally powerless retirement. Then he took his former enemies, guys who had actively fought against him, and he showed them mercy. Because they had everything to prove and expected nothing, they became his most loyal and effective supporters. His dynasty ruled for over 300 years. That's how well it worked.
Okay, let's tackle one more law for today. This one is a fundamental skill that really makes many of the other laws possible: the power of keeping people guessing.
The logic here is pretty straightforward, right? If people don't know what you're truly after, they can't prepare a defense. If they're busy chasing decoys and following false trails that you've laid out, by the time they realize your real goal, it's already too late.
And there is perhaps no greater master of this than the one and only Otto von Bismarck. His ultimate hidden goal was to unify Germany under Prussian leadership. To do that, he knew he had to crush their biggest rival, Austria. But of course, he couldn't just come out and say that.
And his method was just brilliant. He used a powerful decoy. At a time when everyone in Prussia was screaming for war with Austria, Bismarck gives this passionate speech, arguing for peace. This made him look great to the peace-loving king, who then trusted him and gave him more and more power. Once he was prime minister, Bismarck used that power to secretly build up the army he needed and achieve the very thing he had argued against, unifying Germany through iron and blood. He played the long game, and his smokescreen worked perfectly.
So, wow, these laws are ruthless, they're strategic, and honestly, they're often pretty unsettling. So what are we supposed to do with this kind of knowledge?
At the end of the day, the book's worldview is that these power dynamics are an inescapable part of being human. Pretending they don't exist doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you a potential victim of those who understand and use these laws to their own advantage. Whether you see these laws as a guide for your own ambition or as a manual for self-defense, the book really forces you to look at the world differently. It suggests that power is a game that is always being played, no matter what. So the final question isn't if you're a player, it's how are you going to play?